Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer, I'm a professional, not your professional. Nothing about say should be taken as medical, legal, otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. Disclaimer over. So today I thought I'd talk about what I don't know about NATO. And if you don't know what NATO stands for, that's okay. Most people don't. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And so there's 10 things that you need to know about NATO. Maybe you don't need to know them, but maybe it would be helpful to know. So basically, first of all, it's a collective defense. NATO was founded in 1949, and what it is a group of 30 countries from Europe and North America that exist to protect the people and territory of its members. So the alliance is founded on the principle of collective defense, meaning that if one NATO ally is attacked, then all NATO allies are attacked. For example, when terrorists attacked the United States on September 11, 2001, all NATO allies stood with America as though they had also been attacked. And since 2014, NATO has implemented the biggest increase in its collective defense since the Cold War. For instance, we have now deployed 4 multi-national battle groups to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. Their purpose is not to provoke conflict, but actually to prevent one. Second, managing crises around the world. That's what NATO does. So promoting stability in our neighborhood and protecting our people at home can sometimes mean taking action further afield. In the 1990s, NATO stopped further bloodshed from occurring in Bosnia and Kosovo. I'm not saying that right, but that's okay. Since 2003, NATO has helped to ensure that Afghanistan is no longer a safe haven for international terrorist groups. I guess that's changed a little bit recently. NATO has also helped prevent piracy off the Horn of Africa, and since 2016 has helped address the refugee and migrant crisis in Europe. Third thing that you should know about NATO, or that might be helpful to know, is fighting terrorism. So NATO plays an important role in fighting terrorism, contributing more than 13,000 NATO troops to train local forces in Afghanistan. NATO is also a full member of the global coalition to defeat ISIS, and our AWACS, don't ask me what that stands for, surveillance aircraft continue to support the coalition. So NATO is also training Iraqi forces to better fight ISIS, and our new intelligence division helps us to anticipate and respond to threats. In Naples, NATO has set up a hub for the South to help allies tackle the threat of terrorism. Fourth, working with our partners. So because threats like terrorism, piracy, and cyber warfare know no borders, NATO is committed to cooperation with its global partners. That's why we work with over 400 partner countries around the world, as well as organizations such as the United Nations, the European Union, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, say that 5 times fast, and the African Union to spread stability and security. Fifth is about troops and equipment. So whenever NATO carries out a mission, individual allies commit troops and equipment to be placed under a unified NATO command. So these become known as NATO forces. The only military equipment that NATO owns is a fleet of AWACS. Remember that word I said I wasn't sure what stood for? It stands for Airborne Warning and Control. So like I said, the only military equipment that NATO owns is a fleet of AWACS surveillance aircraft. So NATO is also developing a capability for Global Hawk surveillance drones. That'll certainly come in handy. Number 6, NATO's command structure. With so many countries working together, having a clear chain of command is vital. Military and civilian personnel from all member states work together every day within NATO's command structure. This includes 2 top-level strategic commands. Allied Command Operations, based in Mons, Belgium, and then Allied Command Transformation, which is based in Norfolk in the United States. I lived there for a little while. I stayed in Norfolk for about a month. I don't know if that counts as living there, but I was there for about a month. It was a good time. To remain fit for purpose, the NATO command structure is being modernized to enable us to move forces more quickly across Europe and keep sea lines of communication across the Atlantic free and open. 7, NATO funding. So every NATO country contributes to the cost of running the alliance. In case you're wondering where your tax dollars are going, by far the Allies' biggest contribution comes from taking part in NATO-led missions and operations. For example, one country might provide fighter jets, while another provides ships, equipment, or troops. NATO allies also provide direct funding to NATO to cover the costs of NATO staff and facilities, its command structure, and its jointly owned equipment, like those AWACS I mentioned. Number 8, defense spending. So at the Wales Summit in 2014, NATO allies pledged to invest more and better in defense to stop the cuts, move towards spending 2% of the GDP on defense by 2024, and to spend 20% of that on major equipment. We are making progress. Over the last 3 years, the European allies and Canada have spent almost 46 billion US dollars more on defense. And that is something that people debate on as to whether or not it's a good thing or not a good thing. Number 9, the open door policy. The open door policy is a founding principle of NATO and means that any country in the Euro-Atlantic area is free to join NATO if it is prepared to meet the standards and obligations of membership, contributes to the security of the alliance, and shares NATO's values of democracy, reform, and the rule of law. Since 1949, NATO's membership has grown from 12 to 30 countries. And in 2020, we welcomed North Macedonia as the 30th member of the NATO alliance. And if I am hearing in the news correctly, I believe Ukraine is going to join NATO at some point. That's not happening while they're like 6 months deep into war, but that's something that I heard might happen. Now, finally, number 10, cyber defense. So cyber attacks are becoming more common, sophisticated, and damaging, making a cyber defense a top priority for NATO. In fact, NATO now recognizes cyberspace as a, quote, operational domain, just as land, sea, or air. NATO helps allies to boost their cyber defenses by sharing information about threats, investigating in education and training, and through exercises. NATO also has a cyber defense experts that can be sent to help allies who happen to be under attack. So I do hope you found some of the 10 things that you need to know about NATO quite interesting. I did, and that's why I wanted to share it with you all today. So if you want to support the show, click the button on the website, and remember, I appreciate each and every one of you simply for existing.